A few years ago, someone I care about said something to me that I've never quite forgotten. We'd known each other a long time, years. And in the middle of an ordinary conversation, she looked at me and said, almost gently, "You know, I've known you for a decade, and I still feel like there's a room in you I've never been in."
I know this is difficult, Daniel.
She didn't say it as an accusation. There was no anger in it. If anything, there was a kind of sadness. And I remember sitting there, wanting to argue with it, wanting to tell her she was wrong, and realizing somewhere underneath that she wasn't. There was a room. I'd kept the door to it closed for so long that I'd half forgotten it was there. And the strangest part was that I hadn't done it on purpose. I hadn't decided to hold her at a distance. I'd just always done it. With her, with nearly everyone, without ever quite meaning to. I went home that night and I sat with it. And for the first time in a long time, I asked myself a question I'd been avoiding for most of my life. Why do I keep everyone just a little bit apart from me? Even the people I love, even the ones who've earned their way in. Maybe you know this feeling. Maybe you're warm with people. Maybe you're kind and easy to talk to, and no one would ever call you cold. And yet, there's a line, somewhere, that you don't let people cross. A last few feet of distance you always keep, even when part of you wishes you didn't. If that's you, I want to talk about it tonight, not to tell you to tear the wall down, but because I think there's a reason it's there. And I think understanding that reason changes everything about how you carry it. Stay with me. Let me try to describe what this distance actually looks like from the inside, because I think it's often misunderstood, even by the people living it. From the outside, a guarded person doesn't usually look guarded. That's the thing. You might be perfectly warm. You might be the person others open up to, the good listener, the one people trust with their own secrets. You can be generous and present and genuinely caring, and still keep a quiet distance that almost no one notices, because you've gotten so good at being close enough that no one thinks to look for the line. But you know where the line is. You can feel it. It's the point past which you don't let people see, the thoughts you don't share, the fears you keep to yourself, the parts of your history you've decided are yours alone. You let people into the front rooms of your life, and you keep the back ones closed, and you've done it for so long it doesn't even feel like a choice anymore. It feels like architecture. And here's the part that's hard to explain to people who don't live this way. It isn't that you don't want to be close. Most guarded people want closeness badly. They ache for it. It's that letting someone all the way in feels genuinely dangerous in a way that's difficult to put into words, like handing someone something breakable and hoping they understand how much it matters. So you hold a little back. Not because you don't care, but because you care so much that the risk feels enormous. I've thought a lot about where this comes from. And I want to be honest with you about how I've come to understand it, because I don't think it's what most people assume. The world tends to look at a guarded person and reach for the word cold, distant, closed off, as if the distance were a lack of feeling or a lack of interest in other people. But that has never matched what I've seen in myself or in the others I've known who are built this way. The distance isn't the absence of feeling. It's the presence of caution. And caution, in my experience, is almost always something a person learned. Nobody is born holding people at arm's length. A small child doesn't guard themselves. A small child reaches openly again and again until something teaches them not to. And that's the thing I've come to believe about the guarded ones. Somewhere along the way, usually early, they learned that opening all the way up cost them something. Maybe they let someone all the way in and got hurt in a way they never forgot. Maybe they learned that their feelings were too much for the people around them, and so they started keeping the biggest ones to themselves. Maybe they simply grew up in a house where closeness wasn't safe or steady, and they adapted the only way a child can, by learning to need a little less, to show a little less, to protect the soft part before anyone could reach it. Some people seem to learn that lesson so early they don't even remember learning it. It just becomes part of how they move through the world. A quiet rule written so long ago, they've forgotten they're the one who wrote it. And I want to say this clearly, because I think it matters. If you learned to keep your distance, you learned it for a reason. It was not a flaw in you. It was a response. It was once the smartest thing you could have done. But here's where it gets complicated. And this is the part I've had to sit with the longest. There's a difference between a boundary and a wall. And it's a difference that took me most of my life to see clearly. A boundary is something you choose. It's a decision you make in the present about what you will and won't allow based on who's actually in front of you. A boundary is awake. It looks at each person and each situation and decides deliberately how much to open. A wall is different. A wall isn't a choice you make in the present. It's a decision that was made a long time ago by a younger version of you in response to a danger that may or may not still exist. And then it just stayed up, automatically, for everyone, whether they'd earned the caution or not. The trouble is that a wall doesn't check who's approaching. It treats the kind, trustworthy person exactly the same as the one who might hurt you. It keeps everyone at the same fixed distance because it was never really about them. It was about protecting you from a wound that happened before most of them ever showed up. And the person behind the wall often can't tell the difference anymore. The caution feels like wisdom. The distance feels like discernment. It feels like you're just being careful, just being private, just being who you are. When some of the time, what's actually happening is that a rule you wrote at 17 is still quietly running your life at 50. I lived behind that kind of wall for a long time and called it my personality. There's a cost to this, and I don't want to move past it too quickly because I think it's the part that most deserves to be said out loud. The cost of keeping everyone a little apart is that you never quite get to be fully known, and being known, really known, all the way to the back rooms, is one of the deepest things a person can experience. It's the thing where someone sees the parts of you that you're most afraid of, the parts you're sure would send them away, and they stay anyway. That moment changes something in a person. It's how we come to believe, down in the foundation, that we're actually all right. Not the polished version of us, the real one. But if you never let anyone all the way in, you never get that. You can be surrounded by people who love the version of you they're allowed to see, and still carry a quiet loneliness underneath it all. The specific loneliness of being cared for without being fully known. Of being loved at a distance you set yourself. That's a lonely way to be loved. I know because I was loved that way for years, and I was the one who arranged it. And the hardest part is that the wall does its job so well that it protects you right out of the thing you wanted most. You built it to keep the pain out, and it did, but it kept the closeness out too, because they come through the same door. So here's what I've come to believe, and I offer it gently because I know how tender this is. For most of my life, I thought keeping people at a distance was just who I was. A fixed fact, part of my nature, like my height or the sound of my voice. I don't think that anymore. I think it was something I learned. And the thing about what's learned is that it can be gently unlearned, not torn down all at once, not forced, but softened, slowly, one small opening at a time, when it's safe and with people who've shown you they're worth it. The distance was not a defect. I want you to hear that. It was protection. It was the intelligent response of someone who once needed protecting. You built it because you were smart enough and hurt enough to know you needed to. That deserves respect, not shame. But I gently offer you this question, the same one I had to ask myself. The danger that built your wall, is it still standing in front of you? Or is the wall protecting you from something that ended a long time ago? Because sometimes the distance is still exactly right. Some people haven't earned the back rooms and they never will, and keeping them at arm's length is just good sense. But sometimes, more often than we guarded ones like to admit, the wall is wider than the danger. It's keeping out people who would have been gentle with what we gave them. It's holding at a distance the very closeness we've been aching for the whole time. You don't have to let everyone in. You were never supposed to, but you might be allowed to let someone in. One person. A little further than usual. Just to see what it feels like to be known that far. That's not a weakness. After a lifetime of guarding, opening a door on purpose might be one of the braver things you'll do. I'll leave you with this. The distance you keep was built by someone who was trying to protect you. Honor them for it. They got you here. But you're the one standing at the wall now. And you're allowed to decide it doesn't have to be as high as it once was. The people worth keeping don't want to storm the wall. They just want to be let in. And you're the only one who can open the door, not because you have to, but because, quietly, some part of you has always wanted to. Tell me in the comments, are you someone who keeps people at a little distance too? Warm on the surface, but holding a room inside that almost no one's been in? I'd like to know. Because I think there are a lot of us standing behind our walls, wondering the same quiet thing. And if you want to sit with me again, subscribe. I'll be here. I'm Daniel. I'll see you in the late hours.